The words my daughter said that afternoon should have made me happy. Most fathers would probably smile, nod, and accept them without hesitation. But when I heard them, something deep inside my chest went cold. Not because I didn't love my daughter. Not because I didn't adore my newborn grandson. But because in that single moment, I realized my life had already been planned for me, and I had never been asked. She didn't know it yet. But the answer I was about to give her would change our relationship forever. It would break her expectations. It would force her to see me not just as her father, but as a man who still had a life of his own. And the truth is, when I smiled at her that day, she thought I was agreeing. She had no idea I was about to say something that would shock her completely. Something most parents are too afraid to say to their own children. But before I tell you what happened that afternoon, you need to understand how everything began. Welcome to my YouTube channel Whisper Stories, where silence speaks. My name is Addison, and I am 66 years old. At 66, a man begins to believe that life has finally slowed down. You imagine the hardest years are already behind you. You believe that after decades of working, sacrificing, raising children, and burying the love of your life, the world might finally give you a little peace. But sometimes, just when you think you've earned that quiet, life places a new expectation on your shoulders. And sometimes, the people placing that expectation are the very people you sacrificed everything for. The moment my daughter said those words, I felt something inside me quietly break. "Dad," she said gently, adjusting the baby blanket over my grandson's tiny feet, "since Mom passed, you'll help me with the baby full time." She said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world. As if my life had already been decided. As if I had no choice. I smiled, but inside my heart, a different answer had already formed. That's not my plan. 2 years earlier, my world had collapsed in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and quiet despair. My wife, Margaret, had been my partner for 42 years. 42 years of small routines. Morning coffee together. Arguments about whose turn it was to wash dishes. Laughing at old memories no one else would understand. And then one winter evening, cancer took her away from me in less than 6 months. Losing Margaret felt like someone had taken half of my lungs. I could still breathe, but every breath hurt. After the funeral, the house felt unbearably silent. Her slippers still sat beside the bed. Her favorite mug remained on the kitchen shelf. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night and reach across the bed, only to feel cold sheets. For the first year, I existed more than I lived. But slowly, something unexpected began to grow inside me. Freedom. Not the joyful kind. The quiet, uncertain kind. For the first time in 45 years, I wasn't responsible for anyone but myself. And I started dreaming about things I had postponed my entire life. Traveling, fishing in quiet lakes, visiting the mountains Margaret and I had always talked about but never had time to see. I even bought a used camper van. Nothing fancy, just something small that could take me wherever the road went. For the first time since Margaret died, I felt something close to excitement. Then my daughter Emily showed up one afternoon with a diaper bag, a crying baby, and a problem she had already decided I would solve. Emily was 34. She had always been strong-willed, ambitious, and impatient. The kind of child who decided what she wanted and rarely considered other people's plans. Her husband, Daniel, worked long hours at a law firm. Emily worked remotely from home. And now they had a 3-month-old baby named Oliver. My grandson. I loved that little boy the moment I held him. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine. His sleepy little face. But love and responsibility are not always the same thing. Emily sat on the couch while Oliver slept in the bassinet beside her. "Dad," she said casually, "Daniel and I were talking. Since Mom passed, you're alone now." I nodded slowly. "And you're retired," she continued. "Yes. So it just makes sense," she said, you can help with Oliver full-time, that way we don't have to hire a nanny. She smiled like she had just solved a math problem. I waited for the part where she asked. But it never came. She had already decided. You'd move in with us, she continued, or we could move here. Either way, you'd basically watch Oliver during the day. Basically, a full-time job disguised as a favor. I looked at the sleeping baby. Then at my daughter. Emily, I said carefully, have you asked what my plans are? She frowned slightly, confused by the question. You're retired, Dad. Yes. So what plans? I stood up slowly and walked to the window. Outside, my camper van sat in the driveway. The sun reflected off its windshield. That little van represented something important to me. A second chance at life. I'm leaving in 2 months, I said quietly. Emily blinked. Leaving? I'm going to travel. The silence that followed felt heavy. You're joking, she said. I'm not. Her face hardened. So you're choosing a road trip over helping your own family. The words hit like stones. But I had lived long enough to recognize guilt when I heard it. I'm choosing the life I've waited 40 years to live. Emily stood up, anger rising in her voice. You're being selfish. I felt my chest tighten. Selfish. That word followed many parents the moment they stopped sacrificing. Emily, I said gently, I worked 45 years, I raised you, I helped pay for your college, I supported you through every stage of your life. And now you won't help with your grandson. I didn't say that. She crossed her arms. Then what are you saying? I'll visit, I'll babysit sometimes, I'll be his grandfather. I paused. But I won't be his full-time caretaker. Her eyes filled with disappointment. You've changed, Dad. Maybe she was right. But sometimes change isn't betrayal. Sometimes it's survival. Emily left that afternoon without saying goodbye. For several weeks, she barely spoke to me. Phone calls stopped. Visits stopped. I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake. Loneliness can make even the strongest decisions feel uncertain. But every time doubt crept in, I remembered Margaret. Before she passed away, she had squeezed my hand and said something I would never forget. Addison, she whispered weakly, promise me something. Anything. Don't spend the rest of your life waiting. At the time, I didn't fully understand what she meant. But now I did. Waiting had been my entire life. Waiting for promotions. Waiting for bills to be paid. Waiting for retirement. Waiting for the right time. The right time never comes unless you choose it. 2 months later, I packed my camper van. 3 shirts. Fishing gear. A photo of Margaret. And a notebook where I planned to write about my journey. The morning I left, I stood in the driveway staring at the house. 42 years of memories lived inside those walls. But memories don't need walls to survive. I locked the door and started the engine. For the first time in decades, the road ahead belonged entirely to me. 6 months passed. I drove through quiet towns and vast mountains. I fished in lakes so calm they looked like glass. I met strangers who shared stories around campfires. And slowly, the weight inside my chest began to lighten. One evening, while parked near a lake in Colorado, my phone rang. It was Emily. I hesitated before answering. Hello. Her voice sounded softer than I remembered. Dad? Yes. There was a long pause. Oliver said his first word today. My heart warmed instantly. What was it? Grandpa. I laughed. Smart kid. Emily sniffled. I'm sorry. For what? For expecting you to give up your life. The words surprised me. Raising a baby is harder than I imagined, she admitted. Parenthood usually is. I think I was just overwhelmed. That's normal. Another pause. Will you visit when you come back? I'd love to. And maybe watch Oliver sometimes. I smiled. Of course. Not as an obligation, but as a choice. And that made all the difference. Today I'm still traveling. Still discovering roads I never had time to explore. But every few months, I park my van outside Emily's house. Oliver runs toward me shouting, "Grandpa." And I spend a few days building toy towers, reading bedtime stories, and giving Emily a break. Then I leave again. Because being a grandfather should come from love, not obligation. Moral of the story: parents spend most of their lives sacrificing for their children, but growing older does not mean their lives stop mattering. Love should never require someone to abandon their own dreams. The healthiest families respect each other's boundaries, and true support is given freely, not demanded.